billion of my tax dollars are going to go to anything, I would like to see public hearings on stuff like that. And now we're not going to get standalone public hearings on the stadium. So the council has a point in that respect. That said, Josh Harris has made it clear long before they announced this deal, wherever they were going, 2030, that was the date. That was his target. That's what he wants.
Here's from NBC4's story on their website, NBCWashington.com. The D.C. City Council held a closed-door meeting Tuesday morning to discuss removing the deal to build a new Commander Stadium from the district's budget. The deal to bring the team back to the district at the RFK Stadium site could be carved out of the 2026 budget and voted on separately. The vote would not occur until after the budget vote. The Commanders' deal with D.C. requires an agreement by July 15th. If that date passes, the Commanders could start negotiating again with Maryland or Virginia. Mayor Muriel Bowser recently said a delay by the D.C. City Council could jeopardize the deal. In a statement Tuesday, the mayor said the time to debate the deal is now. A delay sacrifices our exclusive seat at the table and a $2.7 billion private investment, Bowser's statement said. The Commanders and my team, a.k.a. the mayor's team, are ready to iron out the details with the council and respond to any concerns. It should be clear, but let me emphasize, if council strips the deal, terms, or budgeted dollars from the budget, it kills our agreement with the Commanders. So that is what Mayor Bowser said. As for what was happening behind the closed doors in this city council meeting, Mark Segraves went and tried to find out, and NBC4's Mark Segraves is with us now. Mark, then they kicked you out?
Yeah, not the first time, and it won't be the last time. But yes, they did. You know, the D.C. Council, and I will say, for me and for a lot of people, this is as big a deal as the command. What they were discussing is the fact that for years, for almost 2 decades, D.C. law said if the D.C. Council, the majority of members of the D.C. Council were meeting to discuss public business, they had to give 2 days notice to the public, and it had to be open to the public. And there were exemptions if they wanted to talk about personnel matters or top secret negotiations with somebody or, you know, top secret security stuff. But stuff like the budget had to be discussed in public. And last month, the council changed that law, and the mayor went along for the ride and signed it into action. And now legally they can do this. They can have these secret meetings behind closed doors and not tell anybody. I happened to find out about this meeting and walked in at the exact moment that they were discussing RFK.
So let me backtrack to that larger picture here. And this is a sports show. We'll spend most of this on RFK, but like, these are public officials discussing public business. Why on earth would it happen behind closed doors?
Because that's how they
go back and forth with one another, and you know, that's how the sausage is made, and they don't want the public to see that. And you know, they say, oh, they don't want their dirty laundry done in public and things like that, but you know, that's how this is done. And this is, you know, people have compared this to, like, this is a seat of government that's asking for representation, right? We don't have any representation in Congress, but yet when it comes down to local level, they want to work in secrecy. And so it's really unfortunate. As a member of the press and as a D.C. resident taxpayer, I find it very unfortunate. The chairman knows exactly how I feel about these meetings. He knows I will try to force myself in every time they have one of these if I'm around. And like I said at the top of the interview, this won't be the last time they throw me out of one of their meetings.
All right, Mark Segraves with us, dogged reporter for NBC4, covering the RFK situation. So how much of a situation do we really have here, Mark? Like, is the city council actually going to peel this out? And if they do, is there any chance that it gets done before the July 15th deadline? And I guess the last part, after reading the story on your website on NBCWashington.com, is like, even if they were able to make the chronology work, does the sheer part or fact of them peeling it out of the budget, would that nullify the deal anyway, and thus that deadline becomes irrelevant?
Look, this is a serious roadblock, and I have to say the commander's statement that they gave me after I broke this story yesterday, it took them all day. I called them in the morning, right, and the mayor's office and the commanders, I called them when I walked into that meeting. As soon as they threw me out, I called the commanders and I called the mayor's office. It took them 6 hours for both of entities to come up with a statement. I was really surprised at how forceful and threatening the commander's statement was. I really expected that the commanders would throw Bill Mendelson, the chairman of the council, a bone and say, okay, we'll agree to give you an extra month so that you can claim a victory and you can have some time to, have a separate hearing, and this will, let you save face and claim victory, and we can give you that. That's what I really expected would happen. Instead, the commanders doubled down with the mayor and said, no, you're going to lose FIFA. You're going to lose this. This is what D.C. has at stake if they don't get this done by July 15th. They really drew a line in the sand. And I don't know how many council members the chairman has on his side to delay any portions of this vote. Now, the chairman has said that the debt service for the $500 million upfront money that they need in this first portion of the development and the legislation, he says that will be protected. That will be in the budget. We don't know what other parts he's planning because it was behind closed doors. So we didn't hear what he told to council members was his vision of what he wanted to take out of the budget and delay. So we're and no one has said. But what we do know is Zach Parker from Ward 5 has since been on the record as saying the vote could be delayed till as late as September or October. That is a significant delay that I don't think the commanders can stomach. Will they go to Maryland and kiss D.C. goodbye? That's a stretch. They've expended a lot of political capital in the White House, in the halls of Congress, and then dollar-wise and otherwise, they're into it. That said, they're not so far down the road that they can't pull out and they can't start looking for a better deal. And all you have to do is look at Virginia and Glenn Youngkin and Ted Leonsis to know that it ain't done until it's done, right? And so anything can happen at this point. So, this is a serious concern for the commanders. It was expected. It did not come out of the blue. They should have been expecting this. But the commanders are doubling down on they want it. They want that preliminary vote by July 15th.
So, Mark, how real is this timeline here? Like, this could be viewed as this is a political box that the commanders and Mayor Bowser are trying to put the city council in to get this thing done. But it could also be real in terms of construction timelines. And maybe this thing has been delayed so long that if they don't have this done by July 15th, they can't actually get the stadium built by 2030. Nevertheless, 2031 2030 when they want it to open for the Commanders, 2031 right, when the Women's World Cup is here, amongst the other big events that they are hoping to land in that time frame. So is this politics? Is this real construction timelines and not as much of a political game?
Yes, it is both. So, look, the chairman and the council have a very valid point that the mayor proposed her budget that includes the stadium legislation much later in the calendar than they typically would. And some of this was because of Congress doing the $1 billion budget cut for the current year. And so the mayor has some, explanation as to why it was late, but the chairman and the council are right. Normally they would have much more time to go over something like this. And again, if I put on my D.C. resident cap, I think if $1 billion of my tax dollars are going to go to anything, I would like to see public hearings on stuff like that. And now we're not going to get standalone public hearings on the stadium. So the council has a point in that respect. That said, Josh Harris has made it clear long before they announced this deal, wherever they were going, 2030, that was the date. That was his target. That's what he wants. And so you kind of have to go with that. And so, again, you're also looking, when you're talking construction these days, you're talking tariffs, right? You're talking about the cost of goods and materials that are in such flux that any delay on anything can cost significant amount of money. And so they obviously want to get this started, start buying things, start getting prices locked in as soon as they possibly can. That said, I don't think this is a deal killer. I really, even if they don't make the July 15th deadline, I don't think that will kill the deal. I think the Commanders and the mayor, they have it in the contract that if they mutually agree to extend that deadline, they can. And I think if the council can say, look, in good faith, by July 15th, we did approve the financing, the debt service for this, so we've made progress. The Commanders may look at that and say, okay, you're operating in good faith. But again, I think if you start with Zach Parker's September-October timeline, that's where I think the Commanders get really, really concerned and worried. And that's why I think Mayor Bowser was a council member and has been mayor for 10 years, and she knows that until it's signed, sealed, and delivered, anything can happen, and she wants to avoid that, and that's why she has been steadfast in this July 15th deadline. And look no further than the Washington Nationals baseball, Nats Park, I was in the room when they took that vote at midnight, and everybody thought it was going to pass, and Linda Kropp changed her vote at the last minute, and everybody thought the deal was dead. And all hell broke loose. And then they went back to the table. They made a few negotiations and changed a few things, came back and voted, and obviously we've got, world champion baseball team in Park in D.C. now because of that. So, it's both politics and it's the reality of financing a multi-billion-dollar project in this day and age.
Mark Segraves with us here on the Hoffman Show, reporter for NBC4 covering City Council and thus the mayor's office and thus the RFK Stadium situation. We're going to go with situation, Mark. When you think about the City Council members that are in flux here, the swing votes, the ones that are going to matter, how many of them are going to be motivated by the politics, how it looks, did it look like I put up a fight versus the substance, and then being able to say later, like, this is why I did it? Because ultimately, like, public hearings are important. They do matter. I'm not anti-public hearings by any stretch of the imagination, but we also elect these people to do a job, and this is part of their job. And I think that if you were a council member who wanted to try to take a look at it and vote with your conscience based off the information available, you could sell that later. Like, you elected me to do this, and I thought it was important enough to get it done. So how many of them will be motivated? Do you have a whip count, if you will, on either side of the motivations for these council members?
So while I may be the oldest, longest-serving D.C. reporter in town right now, I am absolutely the worst at counting votes, and I have 25 years of getting it wrong to prove that. I will say, here's what we know. Going into this week, the mayor felt like she had 10 votes, 10 yes votes out of 12 who would say yes to the stadium, and she only needs 7. And we even saw Phil Mendelssohn, who'd been a no, switch to maybe and yes, but I'm going to make it better. And so the votes are there to pass this. The question is, can Mendelssohn rally a couple of them to delay it? And that's what we're going to find out we'll find out by July 14th exactly whether or not he has those votes to do that. My guess is that the Commanders and the mayors are going to come up with something to give those council members before then, to give them enough assurance that they feel comfortable taking that vote on July 15th. Or Mendelssohn, who said he's meeting with the team later this week, reaches a deal with the Commanders that they allow him some type of delay. And maybe it's Zach Parker saying August or saying October, and then the Commanders saying, like, we'll give you August, right? And the negotiations afoot. But these are the conversations that are, again, going on behind closed doors that the public is not privy to, and so we just have to wait and see how it plays out on the dais.
Do we have any idea delaying it seems silly for the sake of delaying it. They're delaying it for a reason. Do we know what the reasons are?
We know the council just hired Bob. Robert Bob was the city administrator under Mayor Williams. He helped with the negotiations to be the baseball team here. He actually did a report for the mayor on the stadium, on this stadium, on the NFL stadium, and now he's been hired by the council to look into all of this, what this deal actually means, and to give them a report so they know fiscally what it's going to mean for the city. My good friend and colleague Tom Sherwood just tweeted today that he believes Robert Bob's chief job will be not producing a report, but acting as the go-between and the mediator between the mayor and Phil Mendelson, because they just don't play well in the sandbox together.
All right, last question for Mark Segraves, NBC4. We know one of the firm no's is Ward 1 council member Brianne Nadeau. Mark, that's my council member. We have requested an interview with her. She doesn't want to talk. Do we have any idea why she is a firm no and not willing to talk about it?
Yeah, she just doesn't believe it's a good use of funds. She and Charles Allen are probably the two steadfast no votes on this that you can count to vote no. I don't honestly know how they would vote. They would probably vote yes on a delay for whatever motivating reasons that would motivate them to do that. Councilmember Nadeau doesn't put herself out there a lot, and for press. She does do interviews sometimes. You stop her in the hallway, she'll stop. She will talk to you, but I would venture to say that she doesn't see going on your show as going into friendly territory where she's going to win a lot of hearts and minds. Your audience probably more than not wants a stadium, and so what does she have to gain by going on your show? I don't think she's going to change a lot of your listeners' mind, and so that's probably what's going through her head.
I don't need to tell you this, but if you can't explain yourself to people who disagree with you, then you've entered the wrong business as a politician. Like, then you don't have firmly held beliefs, and that's just maybe that's the intrepid reporter somewhere inside of me being like, you should be willing to answer questions.
You 50%, if not more, of all politicians in the country.
Well, Mark, that might be a conversation for a different show, as we like to say around here.
Indeed.
Indeed. Mark, appreciate your time as always. Thank you, sir. Great work, and good luck getting kicked out of your next meeting.
Anytime. I love being on your show. Have me anytime. I appreciate it.
You got it. It's Mark Segraves with us here on the Hoffman Show. And again, like, Anthony, I just have questions. And if you're not, as a public official, willing to answer them, especially in front of people who disagree with you, like, what's the point? If all you're going to do is just speak to the people that already agree with you, then, like, no one ever changes their mind on anything. No one has new information. Okay, you think one way, I think another. If you think you're right, why aren't you willing to explain that to me? I'm not trying to bite your head off. I'm not trying to be like, how could you possibly think that? And there's a chance. I hate the phrase we agree to disagree, because I think it is incredibly overused and people try to avoid conflict and uncomfortable conversations that could actually create a deeper understanding because of it. But there is a chance that foundationally, fundamentally, we would have a conversation that would result us in coming to two conclusions on this kind of thing. That she says, I think that the money can go here. And I would say, well, I think this. And she would go, either, well, we just disagree on that. Okay, fine. What I value versus what she values, and she thinks the rest of my neighbors in Ward 1 value reasonably could be different things. But at the very least, what I would like to know is, are we operating from the same information, right? Everyone gets their own opinions. You don't get your own facts. You can value facts at a different level, but that like on a foundational level bothers me. When a public official will not come on a show like this and discuss the biggest thing, arguably from a budget standpoint, not to mention what it means to so many people in the city, just flat out, nope, not interested. Especially when the interview request is like, hi, I'm one of your constituents. Can we chat? No? Well, damn.
Yeah, it just sound like, they're stuck in their own, little bubble, and their perspective is theirs, and they don't want to, hear others. So,
If you're that entrenched, then you should be willing to explain yourself.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it. That's all I got to say about that. Thanks again to Mark for joining us. When we get back on the field, football style, it's our Pick 6 at 6, and at 6:30, we're previewing tonight's Game 3 of the NBA Finals.
Hey, this is D.A., and you're listening to The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.